Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We're on episode 4 of Free Dive to the Future, and last episode was a really nice little bout of fan service. Getting to see Rin's daily routine, getting to see the Australian team, getting more insight into Mihail, seeing Natsuya, who I never thought I'd want to see Natsuya and Rin interactions, but here we are, and they were wonderful. For some reason, and people on Patreon have pointed it out, I thought that Natsuya's voice actor was the same voice actor as Haiji from Run with the Wind, but that's Asahi. But Natsuya's voice actor is AG from Banana Fish, and I was like, oh, it's so weird hearing AG speak in English, because that's what he would have been doing in Banana Fish when he was talking to Ash. And then also the idea of AG just getting drunk at a restaurant with basically the same voice actor as Arthur, so from Banana Fish. So there's that. What a cool, or not Arthur, that would have been Sosuke. Mamoru's not in Banana Fish, but regardless, it was still a nice little piece of information. But last episode was really, really good, and getting insight into Ikuya, Natsuya's worry about Ikuya, and also a little tiny hint of things to come with Hiyori. So I said in the last reaction I was going to put like a little pin on Hiyori and kind of save him to talk about for later, because I feel like with what's come to light in the last episode of Ikuya meeting Hiyori in America and Hiyori coming back to Japan with him, that there's something else to that. And so I want to kind of wait and see what we all find out about that. But in the meantime, I'm really excited. It looks like our trio, Asahi, Mako, and Haru, are going to Shiogami University to go track down Ikuya and talk to him and set things straight. I did want to point out that someone in the YouTube comments, thank you for this, pointed out about the animal mascots that are for the universities that Haru and Ikuya are at. And I guess Asahi too. And so I thought this was really important. But Hikeda University, their mascot is a hawk. The bird of fate is literally the mascot for Haru and Asahi's university. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, the damn bird of fate. That's why it's here this season. That's why it's been present. It's been here all along, because it was just a premonition. I was like, it all makes sense. But there's that. But more importantly, there is Shirogami's mascot, which is a wolf. And I find that very interesting, because that really fits Ikuya, because Ikuya is kind of acting like a lone wolf, doing the individual medley. He's not relying on anybody else or, wanting to be with anyone else in terms of the relay. But as the old saying goes, the pack survives and the lone wolf dies. So it's like, if you're a wolf, you want to be in a pack because that's where you get your strength. And if you're by yourself, you're more vulnerable and open to weakness and being attacked. And so I think that's very, very true for Akuya. And I think it's a good little subtle bit of symbolism that, if you didn't pay attention to know this mascot, you probably wouldn't pick up on it. But that's kind of the whole thing with this season, is Akuya is being a lone wolf, but he needs to be around people to get stronger. And Hiyori is kind of acting like a lone wolf and just wanting to be Akuya's friend by himself. And that's not conducive for growth either. So I found that really, really interesting. But yeah, I'm so excited. I've got my bingo card. I've got my stamp. I am ready to go with episode 4. The only thing I know is that our 3 guys are going to infiltrate Shirogami University, and we shall see where that goes. I'm hoping that we get an interaction with both Akuya and Hiyori in this, and get some more information about both of them. Because by this point in the series, we know enough about Mako and Haru. We don't know a whole lot about Asahi, but Asahi's pretty straightforward. So I think we've gotten all the gist that we need to with his character. But I want to know more about Akuya and Hiyori. So I'm hoping this episode does that for us. But in any case, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoy the reaction. And yes, we are going to start episode 4 of Free Dive to the Future, Interference of Loss. I don't know what to make of that title, but we are going to start that episode here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh my gosh, you guys. Oh my gosh. Hold on. Let me go back to this episode and turn the sound off because there's a couple things I want to make sure I don't forget to talk about. Oh my gosh, this episode. What? Huh. I'm really liking this season a lot, but man, Hiyori. Okay, there's some interesting elements with this episode. First of all, I really like Kiyoani's art style for the book. Like, it's different than the animation for the show, which is really cool. So the concept of the Little Mermaid, I was thinking it was more along the lines of the love angle and the relationship angle, but that's not it. It is the idea that the Little Mermaid, that Ariel gave up her voice to gain human legs. And we're going with like the Hans Christian Andersen, like the original version of the Little Mermaid. So in gaining human legs, it was a painful process. Like, it wasn't like Disney where she just had legs and had to flop around. Like, it felt like knives were stabbing. Like, what you gained was not just something like a pleasant, everything worked out great. Like, it was painful and you lost something in the process. So Akuya's wondering, what did I gain? And it has been painful to gain. And what have I lost? And from the looks of the episode, it's like I've gained this fame and reputation and this ability to be a great swimmer, but in the process I've lost these friendships because I'm doing the individual medley. I'm not doing the relay. I'm gaining all this reputation and this acclaim and winning and success, but in the process I'm losing that friendship and I'm losing those bonds with the people that in the long term probably matter more than the acclaim and the success. So that's interesting, and it being like one of his favorite stories makes a lot of sense. But there's so much going on in this episode. A lot going on. And man, Hiyori. Huh, buddy. So, oh gosh. First of all, this episode, I really enjoyed this. For being as angsty as it was, our boys outing to Shimogami University was really, really good. And there's so much happening that I feel like usually the episodes so far this season have been like all over the place, and this was pretty centralized to just Haru, Mako, and Asahi. We got like a little brief tidbit with Go and Sosuke, and a little brief tidbit with Momo and Notori, and a little brief thing with Nagisa and them, but that wasn't the main focus. I love that Asahi and Kasumi, they're like so close, and Kasumi's like, well, I have the dirt on everybody on campus. It's just how I am. But don't you know she's out with her boyfriend today? Maybe you won't see him. And then, of course, as fate would have it, it's the Archerfish guy from Akuya's team that's dating the friend of Kasumi. 6 degrees of Kasumi, I tell you. But yeah, so I like that our boys, they just jaunt around and figure out where Akuya is. But, of course, the timing is awful. The timing of this whole thing is awful because... And I wonder if Ikuya hadn't had that incident happen where he kind of sank in the pool, if he hadn't had that recurring incident happen, if Hiyori would actually have let them meet him. I don't know. I don't think so. I think Hiyori would have tried to find an excuse for him not to be there, but I don't know for sure. I'm not certain about that. That's a good question. But, man... So, Akuya noticing the guys and then let Hiyori go and talk to them, which we need to talk about that. But Hiyori saying he's his best friend. He's like, I'm his best friend. And to Hiyori's credit, he does do a lot for Akuya. He brought him all that food, and he's like, I'll make you dinner, and I've got ice cream, and I'll make you coffee. Like, he is nice to Akuya. He's not... abusive, or he's not verbally or mentally abusive to Akuya. He's genuinely nice to Akuya, and he is a good friend. He just hogs Akuya all to himself. And there's a part of it where the incident in the pool kind of connects to that, where he's like, I've been entrusted by Natsuya to watch over Akuya. So Natsuya's left, and you can tell that Natsuya and Hiyori text each other constantly about Akuya because they're worried about him, because this has not been... He told the guys at the end that there was an incident in America in the pool, but as we've seen in this season so far, it's not just limited to that. It keeps happening? He keeps having this oxygen deprivation. He keeps overworking himself and he keeps collapsing. And it's a problem. And Akuya and Hiyori is clearly worried about him. Like in the pool scene where he collapses this episode, Hiyori looked genuinely worried and concerned. And of course, he's like, I don't want any relapses or, Akuya to stumble any more than he already is. And so I can see where Hiyori's like, talking to you guys is just going to stir up even more problems. So you need to stay away because Ikuya is delicate. As he said, he's delicate and he's in a bad place right now. And you guys will just make it worse. So I can see Hiyori's line of thinking. I don't agree with it. But because obviously those guys are just trying to reconnect to him. And I also think there's a bit of jealousy there too. That Hiyori senses that Hiyori is jealous of them. He doesn't want them to reconnect. Because I think that Hiyori's also afraid that there are people in life that need to be depended on. Like it's a very true to life thing. I know people in, the real world that they need to be depended upon. That's kind of their thing. They need others to depend on them, and they really strive and thrive with that. And Hiyori definitely seems like one of those people. Like he wants to be relied upon. And so he has really taken to heart this idea of being there for Akuya, like to the extreme. And so I get the feeling that that Hiyori thinks that if Akuya has Haru and Mako and Asahi in his life, he won't need Hiyori as much. And Hiyori's like, but I want you to need me, and I want to be there for you, and I want to help you. And so if you have these other people, then my purpose, why did I come to Japan with you? What purpose will I have? So he's really tied himself to Akuya so heavily that he really doesn't want anybody else getting in there as well, which is very, very interesting. So there's that setup. This dark-haired man just popping up out of nowhere like a vagabond, just showing up, and they're all like, I like that Mako's like, I don't think he's a student. And then he says he hates mackerel, which is Haru's favorite thing. So he's so curious. I'm like so intrigued by him, but I'm like, who are you, dude? What is up? And then we cut to Akuya collapsing in the pool, and yeah, Hiyori is seriously worried about him. And you can tell, like, I'm sure, and we get that at the end of the episode, that he really doesn't like Haru, because he thinks Haru's partially responsible for all this. And he says that Akuya doesn't worry about, or doesn't think about that promise or worry about that. I don't know if Hiyori realizes that, yes, Akuya very much still worries about that, or if he just doesn't know. But yeah, Akuya's whole problems are kind of centered around the fact that there's not that resolution, there's not that resolving of the conflict. So yeah, then we cut to the scene where, and Asahi's very much like, you're a liar, I don't trust you, you're a jerk face, like what is this business, are you lying to us about us seeing him, like what's going on? And yeah, Asahi is like totally against Hiyori. He's like, and I could hear Haiji in this episode, like that angry demon senpai. Like I could hear Haiji in Asahi's voice in this episode, which was very, very fun. But there was a bit of a gauntlet thrown down here by Hiyori when he was like, oh, Haru, well, I swim backstroke, but I hear that you only do free. So clearly you're not going to be the one to race me, are you? Or basically implying that if Haru raced against him and did the backstroke, he would lose. And he's like, And that whole I'm his best friend was so condescending. That little smile. Oh, man. Tuno Hiyori. But yeah, and there was like a little insult added where he was like, oh, but Haru, you only swim free and I swim backstroke. But, I can swim free too if that's what it takes. Like just implying that Haru is not that good and implying that, oh, well, I can swim multiple strokes, so it's fine. I can face you. It'll be okay. Like that was, oh, buddy, that was such a gauntlet thrown at Haru. And then Mako, I was waiting for it since episode 1. That fist clenched and he was like killer whale time. He's like, no, you know what? I'll race you. And you know what? I think it speaks volumes for Mako that Mako has not competitively swam in how long? And this guy Hiyori is on a college swim team that is supposed to be competitive, and Mako nearly beat him. It either says to how good of a swimmer Mako is, or how not so good of a swimmer Hiyori is. And I think it might be both, because Mako is a good swimmer. I honestly think, even though Mako in season 2 was like, no, I'm not good enough to be a competitive swimmer, I think Mako could have been a competitive swimmer. I really do. But he found his calling to be a teacher, and so he's like, I'm just going to do that instead. But I think he is good enough. And I feel really bad that Mako lost, like, by a hair. By a hair. And it was just enough where you as the audience could notice when Hiyori reached the finish line first. It's like, damn, that sucks. Ugh. And yeah, Asahi just gets really, really angry with Hiyori. And Haru and Mako do a pretty good job of keeping their cool. And I like that Haru's the one that has to hold Asahi back, like, whoa, easy, dude. We got this. And Mako's trying to spare Haru from getting his feelings hurt, too. Because Haru is not as delicate as Akuya by far. He's not as delicate at all. And we've seen that from the last 2.5 seasons. But Mako's like, I'm Haru's friend as well, and I'm going to stick up for him, and backstroke's my thing, so I'm going to face you. And Hiyori's like, okay, sure. But, yeah, this episode, so good. And Mako being like, yeah, I felt the urge to swim against him. I like the Hiyori, or not Hiyori, Kasumi just kind of like ditches practice to go hang out with him. He's like, I'll ditch practice today. It kind of gives me the idea that Kasumi's basketball team either isn't that good, or he's just not that good of a player, and he's like, I can ditch, it's fine. I'm not that serious about this. I just love that. And Kasumi's like, well, Ikuya's my friend too, so I'm gonna go. And when he's like hanging out with Mako, Kasumi's like, I don't like this. This seems kind of childish. Which Kasumi's like our bubbly, childish character, so it's funny that he says that. I'm like, aw. So, oh man, we get a brief little callback with Nagisa and Rei, and the whole flyer of the deserted island training camp. And Nagisa's like, oh yeah, that was from 2 years ago. It just hit me in that moment of the episode, hearing that, man, that was from season 1, which in reality has been way more than 2 years ago in terms of how long this show's been out. But in terms of the show, the idea that it's been 2 whole years, that's crazy, y'all. That just, it just hit the time passage in the show, how real it feels. And that just is crazy. And of course, Rei is like, yes, we've got to be training too and getting the training camp ready. And I like that Ayumu's like in the corner, like, okay. I do like Romeo's character a lot too. He's very kind of like snide, like such a first year, like, okay, cool. And then Go comes in saying that Samazuka is going to swim with them. And that's really exciting. So I'm glad next episode we're going to get to see Notori and Momo and Nagisa and Rei a little bit more. I feel like they've been kind of shoved to the side this season because we're focusing on our college aspect, which I get why people wouldn't like that, because if you especially like Nagisa and Rei's character, they've really been kind of tossed to the side in the high school world. But I'm okay with it, because we're getting into some like new stuff with the college angle, and Nagisa and Rei are third years, so maybe next year if we get another season or we get the other movie, we'll tie into their college experience as well. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, so apparently the school that faced all of them back in Take Your Marks at the sauna, the school that they saw there, is going to be there as well, which that school also had Natsuya helping out as well. So if we're doing 6 degrees of Kasumi, Natsuya said at the end of last episode that he was going to be going back to Japan, or he was leaving. So I'm assuming he's going to go help out that team. He's been talking to Rin, so Natsuya could talk to Sosuke, and Sosuke could learn about Rin, and 6 degrees of Kasumi. I'm really excited for that. I'm like, we're getting all these interactions, all these characters are all coming full circle, and Nagisa and Rei have not met Natsuya, so that would be another connection. I'm liking these web of characters in this season and how they're all interacting with one another indirectly and directly. That's really, really cool. But we get to go to Sosuke, hearing that his shoulder, he should be able to swim. And I really like that the doctor tells him, he's like, it's not that you can never swim again. Like, you can. Like, you'll just have to keep doing rehab if you mess stuff up. Injuring it doesn't mean that it's going to be the end, which I really like that. And Sosuke being like, my shoulder's a bomb. And he's like, well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. But he does say if you want to be able to swim at full strength, you're going to have to make a decision. And I'm guessing that's the surgery angle of it. Like, you're going to have surgery to fix it if you think you're going to be able to competitively swim seriously. And I like that him and Go get to interact. Like I said in the reaction, I'm a So-Rin fan, but you know what? If the show won't let us have So-Rin, I would take So-Go. I'd take it. As long as Sosuke can be in the Matsuoka family, I'm fine. I'm fine. Sosuke Matsuoka just has such a ring to it, you know? So, The Little Mermaid, we go back to Hiyori and Akuya. And again, Hiyori is not a bad friend to Ikuya. He's not emotionally manipulative for the most part. Let me phrase it this way. He's not verbally abusive. He's not verbally or mentally abusive to Ikuya. He is a genuine friend. Like, he brought him snacks, he brought him food, he made coffee. Actually, Ikuya made the coffee, but he brought ice cream. Like, he's being a good friend. And here's the kicker. Because this whole time in this season so far, I've been like, Hiyori's keeping all of this behind Akuya's back. He's keeping these people away from Akuya. He's keeping Mako and Haru and Asahi away. And it's just, that's the manipulative angle that I was not on board with at the start of this season. I was like, Hiyori, you're not telling Akuya all of these things. And that is being slightly manipulative. But here's the thing. Akuya knows that Hiyori is talking with Haru and Asahi and Mako. He knows. He asked him this episode, he's like, I know you saw them today. And Hiyori's honest. He says, yeah, I saw them. And he tells them, like, I'm replaying the episode right now. He says, yeah, I told them the same thing as last time. That this is an important time for you, so I didn't want them seeing you. And then he says, is it okay that I told them that? And Akuya says, yeah, I guess. So, one, this conversation's happened before, because he said, like last time. So he's told Akuya when he saw them and said, you know, Akuya's training, you shouldn't be seeing him right now. And he told him that again. And Akuya said, yes, I guess. So, here's the thing. I can't totally be mad at Hiyori 100%. Like what Hiyori did at the end of this episode was bad. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what he said at the end of this episode and what he did. Because that is a problem. But he isn't lying to Akuya when he tells him what he told him. Now, Hiyori didn't say, oh, I'm his best friend. He didn't say that, which it's kind of a white lie. He's kind of going around that. But the fact that Akuya knows adds a whole nother layer to this, because that puts a little bit of this on Akuya too. Like, Akuya, these guys are trying to connect with you. You know that they're trying to connect with you. You know Hiyori's telling them no because you're practicing. There's a little bit of impetus on Akuya to say, oh, well, maybe I should talk to them. But he's not doing that. And I don't know if that's partially because Akuya is a bit introverted, and if he's a bit introverted and he doesn't want to talk to him in that regard. I don't know if there's something with that, or if Akuya just doesn't quite realize how much these guys want to see him. He's just like, oh, I don't get why they're trying to talk to me. It's been so long. I don't get that if it's that, but the fact that Akuya knows and that Hiyori has been honest enough that he's told them that adds a whole nother layer to this whole situation that is very, very interesting. But that doesn't excuse how Hiyori is at the end of this episode, and we need to talk about that. The idea of the sea witch and everything, and what did I give up? So I like this little connection with the Hikeda team where they're all talking with Haru and Asahi, like, man, friendships, like, once you leave high school, it can be hard to keep those up. And so we get it. We get, they're kind of like, I like that little team bonding. We don't know their names, really, of the other teammates, but I like that they are bonding. And then Captain Mikashiba is like, you can be friends and practice, like, being like the in-between, the middleman and all this. I love that Kasumi is watching Mako swim, and he's just like, I don't get it. He just has that bored look on his face. He's like, I've watched you backstroke for like the last half hour, and I don't understand this. Why couldn't you all play basketball? I love that Kasumi is supportive, but you can clearly tell that he's like, I don't get swimming, but here we are. I guess I'll support and be here. So, yeah, we get Hiyori showing up, and we get the little kid beforehand that Mako, and we get the little flyer that says swim coach available, so I'm hoping that Mako takes that position while he's in school so he can help that little kid. Like, that would be really fun. But yeah, we get the moment of and the music this episode has been really good. Like, it was very noticeable, the music throughout this, which I was like, oh, cool, awesome. I really liked the soundtrack in this episode. I'm hoping that we get more new tracks like this as the season goes on, but I feel like we got a couple new ones, and that was really, really cool. The dub music came back, the ominous dub music from season 2. In season 1, I'm excited. And of course, we're attaching it to Hiyori instead of Ikuya, because Hiyori is our antagonist. I thought at the beginning of this series, at the beginning of this season 3, that Ikuya would be our fake antagonist, and he is. Ikuya is the fake antagonist. He's not really our antagonist. Hiyori is our antagonist. And an actual antagonist he is, because he's like, man, Mako, you were actually really good. And Mako's the better man. Mako's like, he said he wanted to swim against Hiyori to try to understand him. To kind of feel him out and feel like what kind of person he is. And I think that this moment at the end of this episode is a turning point, especially with how our characters interact with Hiyori, I mean. Because Mako reaches out his hand. He's like, you were a good swimmer too. Like, good on ya. And Hiyori says, gee, thanks, but you still don't need to see Ikuya. And and Mako's hand just flexing, like, excuse me? Excuse me, I'm reaching out my hand, I'm being nice and respectful to you, and you said no? Like, that moment where Mako's hand just, like, clenches a little bit is like oh, you are an asshole. Oh, okay. And Asi's like, you're still saying that? And Hiyori's like, well, since you took the time to race me, let me tell you something you don't know about Ikuya that I know. And he's like, I know in middle school Ikuya had this incident, and he had another incident like it in America. What Hiyori is not telling them is that it wasn't just America. It has been happening over and over again. And they're all like, oh no, like, our friend was hurt again? Like, that's not good. And Hiyori's not telling him that it keeps happening, but they were clearly viscerally affected by just knowing that it happened again while they weren't there, because they're like, oh, that's our friend. And then Hiyori's like, Akuya is very delicate, and he overcame the incident, so it's fine. Like, he's turned out stronger than before. You know, it's fine. But this is the kicker when he says, like, I've learned a lot about you, Haruka. Nanase-kun. And this line, everyone who swims with you ends up suffering somehow. Huh. That line, that look, the Hiyori, that condescending, sweet look, the Hiyori's like, everyone that swims with you suffers, doesn't he? Oh. And he just leaves on that note. Oh my God. Oh. That was such a savage, brutal thing to say, because that's the knife digging in. If you want to get to Haru's core, Haru cannot stand other people suffering because of him, or the idea that other people are suffering because of him. That's like Haru's biggest weakness. And we've gone through that with Rin to a big extent. We had that incident with Ikuya. And Hiyori just, like, took the knife and was like, there you go. Oh, you had all this progress as a character? I'm gonna make you take 3 steps back now, bitch. Oh my gosh. Because, yeah, that's Haru's biggest weakness, is thinking that people suffer because of him. And we know that he's gotten over that with Rin. But this whole thing with Ikuya, because Ikuya is still suffering. And it's not because of Haru, but it's because of the unresolved conflict going on surrounding Haru and everybody else. And if Hiyori would just let them talk, If Ikuya and them could just sit down and talk, I think it would all work out. But Hiyori thinks that it's just going to make things worse rather than better. He has such a negative outlook on it that he's not willing to let that happen because he's like, no, Natsuya told me to watch you, and I think if you meet with Haru and them, it's just going to make things worse. It's not going to make it better. And the reality is, no, they need to talk it out. But Hiyori is our antagonist. Hiyori is our obstacle this season. He really is. And for a while, I thought, oh no, I'm like, Hiyori's just kind of like a jerk. He's not really the obstacle. He's really the obstacle. It's not Ikuya that we not only do we need to have the heart-to-heart with Ikuya and get him on the path of Nakama, but we need to face Hiyori and figure out how to get around him or how to make him come to light too. So we got double the work to do this season. And it's episode 4, so we're a third of the way through. This is officially, as I've talked about in Skate, with 12 episode series, usually there's the 3-act structure is like every 4 episodes. And with Skate the Infinity, it's a little bit different. And I talked about that in episode 9. But with this series, I feel like this episode 4 is officially the end of Act 1. It's the end of Act 1. And our conflict is not just getting Ikuya to resolve the past with our 3 guys, but it's handling Hiyori. Hiyori is our obstacle because he is the wall that is separating Ikuya from Asahi, Mako, and Haru. And how are we going to get around that? So, oh man, y'all, I am so excited to see how we do this. How are we getting around Hiyori? That is the question. But you guys, this episode was great. I am loving the free angst, the setup, because it's not just angst for the sake of angst. There is a clear connection to Hiyori's character. There's a connection to Ikuya. There's a connection to everybody's pasts. The idea of guilt, the idea of unresolved conflict, the idea of unrequited friendship and relationships not being, promises not being kept. There's so much going on. And I'm really excited, and I just know that this whole season is going to come to a head with all the groups meeting up. And that was set up to this episode. The idea of all the groups are practicing together. There's all these interconnecting webs. Everything is being set up, and I'm really, really excited about it. Indeed. So, looking at this bingo card, there's not a lot that we can check off this episode, honestly. There's Rin and I feel like Rin and Haru and them. We haven't met up yet, so Ikuya and Haru argue over who's angstier. They've not been in a scene together, really, to have that happen. They've been in a scene together, but it's not happening yet. I have a feeling Mako helping a student to swim, that's going to happen in the future. Asahi and Ikuya argue at a swim meet. I wish I'd changed that to Hiyori, because Asahi and Hiyori, they don't like each other, or at least Asahi does not like Hiyori. You know what? I will check off one this episode. Sosuke stretching his shoulder on screen. It wasn't a stretch, but when he said that my shoulder's like a bomb, he kind of like referenced it like this. Good enough for me. Good enough. We're going to nail that one and call it good. So, man, I'm really close to a bingo. I'm really close. If Haru and Rin would tie at a swim meet, I'd have it, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet, and I have a feeling it's going to be later on the season when that happens. Oh, buddy. But yeah, I really liked this episode. I've really liked this season. So I'm so curious to see what happens next. But our salty wrench, Hiyori is our salty wrench in all this, our obstacle to overcome. And now I'm excited to see how we're going to do it. So I hope you all enjoyed this reaction. Please feel free to comment down below. But no spoilers, please. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Stay safe, take care, and yeah, next week we'll be back with episode 5 of Free Dive to the Future. Bye.